Today on Passion for Food, we're going to be making some peach and apricot chutney from dried fruit. But not just any chutney, this recipe is based on my favorite South African classic, this Mrs. H.S. Balls Chutney. This goes really great with curry, roasted meat, Cornish pasties, or really whatever else you would like to serve it with. So let's go ahead and jump in here and make some. First up, we need about 1.5 pounds of dried peaches, and these are South African peaches, which seemed appropriate. The actual weight and the packaging weight can vary a little because they keep drying once they're packaged. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, the recipe as I'm posting it is a scaled down version of supposedly the original recipe, but it's still going to make a very large batch of chutney. So you might want to cut it down to about 1/3. That way you'll wind up with two 32-ounce bottles of chutney at the end. And to our 1.5 pounds of peaches, we're going to add 1/2 pound of dried apricots. So that's a 3-to-1 ratio peaches to apricots, making it relatively easy to scale this recipe up and down. But before we can actually work with our fruit, we need to soak it overnight in about 2 liters of vinegar. Now, the original recipe called for brown wine vinegar, but I decided to use apple cider vinegar. It's more readily available where I am because it's locally produced, and that little hint of apple really works great here. So that's about 8.5 cups of apple cider vinegar for 2 liters. Now we'll simply cover this and let it soak overnight. You're going to notice it's going to absorb a significant amount of that vinegar. Soak them for at least 6 hours, but 12 would be better. Once they're nice and soft, we can go ahead and drain them into a large pot. We want to keep all that vinegar, don't throw that out. After letting that drain for just a moment, we can go ahead and turn this out onto our cutting board. Now, I'll be honest, I had this idea that I was just going to be able to grab my chef's knife and kind of wade my way through this, but I severely underestimated just how much fruit I had here. And it quickly became apparent that I was going to be here all day with this approach. So I decided to switch to a cleaver to get this done a little quicker. If you have a food processor, that would also work great, but I was already committed to the way of the blade here. Speaking of which, did you hear about the knife that was super smart? Yeah, apparently it was very clever. Anyway, once we're done reenacting Fruit Ninja, we can just go ahead and dump all this fruit right back into our pot with our vinegar. And to that, we're going to add 1 more liter of vinegar. That's about 4¼ cups. We're also going to add 12 grams of salt. That's 2½ teaspoons. Along with about 7 grams of ground cayenne pepper. That's approximately a tablespoon. And now for the fun part. We're going to add just a little bit of sugar. Not too much. I know everybody's watching their simple sugar and carbs these days. So we'll try to go fairly sparingly with the sugar, just a little bit more. Now, I bet you thought that was enough, but that's how I get you. Never. There's a little more. Just a little more sugar. There we go. That was about 5.5 pounds. Alright, now that we've sweetened things up in here, we can go ahead and crank the heat on to high to bring this up to a simmer and add our final ingredient, about 500 grams of finely chopped onions. That's just over 1 pound. We'll just give that a quick mix as it comes up to temperature so our scant 5.5 pounds of sugar don't burn to the bottom. Once this comes up to a simmer, we just want to slap a lid on here and we're going to cook this for about 2 hours. I like to check in every 30 minutes or so just to give it a quick stir around and see how things are progressing. You'll notice as you check on it, it'll get darker as time goes on. That's totally normal. Don't worry, you're not burning anything. Until finally, after about 2 hours, it should look something like this. It's developed a really great amber color and our fruit has broken down a little more for us. But that's it. Our peach and apricot chutney is ready to put into jars. This recipe is able to fill 6 of these 32-ounce jars, which, yes, that is quite a lot of chutney. And I like to use what I call the lazy canning method, where I just pour the liquid in while it's still boiling. That way it sterilizes the jars for me. Just be sure and get the lids on right away and flip those jars over so it'll sterilize the other side as well. And now we just let them cool completely. Once it has, you'll see it'll thicken up wonderfully for us. So let's go ahead and open this up and give it a try. And you can see we have a nice vacuum seal on the top. If you've never tried this stuff before, you really should. It's sweet, it's spicy, it's tangy, and everything nice. So let's go ahead and serve some over some roast chicken. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Passion for Food. If you have, give me a thumbs up below and don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss our future recipes. And check out one of our other great videos on the screen now. This has been Graham with Passion for Food.